were just pointing to UCF dominating the CU Buffs team. We hadn't really seen a full 60 minutes put together by the Buffs. You've seen kind of hints and sparks of everything, but you really hadn't quite seen something to truly be like, this team is worth acknowledging. But you come into this week, the 48-21 win after being underdogs in this game was truly a statement game for the Buffs. It was the first statement game I have seen since the win against TCU. If you remember, Coach Prime was hired when the Buffs ended their season 1-11. Coach Prime came in, and the very first game they played was against TCU, and they won that game. And that was Coach Prime's statement game. That was, I'm here to win. Unfortunately, the Buffs didn't have as great of a season as a lot of people were kind of hyping up and projecting. They won that. They ended 4-8, but they're already 4-1 sitting right now, 2-0 in the Big 12 conference. If you look at their coming schedule, they are favored actually in every single game right now, besides the Kansas State game. And that game, not this week, but will be played next week in Boulder. So CU does have that home field advantage, but that is going to be kind of their major game coming up. Kansas State is also on a bye this week. So you're going to have two teams coming off a bye, completely kind of ready to go. Hopefully all healthy. We're hoping Shiloh Sanders, who did get injured, is going to be back, but that's going to be the game kind of that defines CU right now. Like I said, 4-1, they are 2 games away from being bowl eligible, and they haven't been bowl eligible since 2007. As Coach Prime said, his main goal is to get, if you do not know Peggy, she is the 99-year-old CU Buffs super fan. She's been all over. She's repping Blenders, Coach Prime sunglasses, but Coach Prime's goal is to get her to a bowl game, and the Buffs are 2 games away. However, do not get, I'm just a little bit skeptical still, right? The Buffs started 3-0 last year, if you do not remember, and then ended up only winning 1 game after that, ending their season 4-8. So there's still a lot more that needs to happen, right? You can't be too hopeful yet, but the dominating kind of upset win against UCF definitely showed me that the Buffs are a better football team than they have been. You had a full 60 minutes, both special teams, offense, defense, all came together and showed us if the Buffs can continue playing like this, they can win. I'm not going to say Kansas State, but they can win most every game on that schedule and especially become bowl eligible. If not, get into that Big 12 kind of title game and maybe earn a spot in the college football playoffs. Every winner this year, you have 12 teams going into the college football playoffs, and the Big 12, the winner of that automatically gets a spot. So there's a lot to be hopeful for this team. And to me, the Buffs have to play like that again, especially against Kansas State. They're home, which is nice. They have a bye, which is also nice. But Kansas State just dominated Oklahoma State this last week, and then you're going into a bye. So it's going to be a great game. It's a night game. It's an 8:15 kickoff game. But if I can see what the CU Buffs just did to UCF against Kansas State, I think they win that game. They're underdogs going into that game. I still think they've proved to me now that they can win. Obviously, you have Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. And again, you can't talk Buffs without talking Travis Hunter. He's the Heisman hopeful. Everyone is saying that this kid is the best player right now in college football. And I have to agree. Obviously, I'm a Buffs fan. I'm an alum from Colorado. But to me, Travis Hunter, if you're really just looking at the best football player in college football, Travis Hunter should be winning that Heisman. And that's what I think. This game, he played 128 snaps. Again, he plays offense and defense, and he's still putting up numbers. It's not that he's just playing both sides of the ball. He's been dominating both sides of the ball. So he played 58 of 64 snaps on offense, then 70 of 79 snaps on defense. So to me, Travis Hunter is the front runner for the Heisman. And if the Buffs continue performing like this and Travis Hunter continues performing like this, I really don't know what kind of argument you can make for another player to win this. And again, you still have some great Heisman candidates. You have the Miami quarterback, you have the Ole Miss quarterback, you have the Alabama quarterback. And normally the Heisman does go to a quarterback. I mean, statistically, it normally goes to a quarterback, but when you have a player like Travis Hunter who is playing almost every single snap in a football game, that is what and putting up those numbers is what shows me who is the best football player in college. As you know, Shedeur also had a great game. Shedeur had 290 yards, 3 touchdowns, just kind of going through that list. Travis Hunter, 89 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. And then you have Will Shepherd, who had 99 yards and a touchdown as well. So in total, the Buffs dominated on offense. They had 561 receiving yards, 46 catches. And then you go to the defense side, right? They have 11 tackles, 2 interceptions. I mean, this was the first true game I had seen the CU Buffs put together. And it makes me super excited to be a Buffs fan. Again, you have Kansas State coming up, not this week. Again, Buffs are on a bye. The last matchup, though, against Kansas State, if you're really looking at kind of the history between these two games, was back in 2010. And CU did win that game. It was a high-scoring game, 44-36. CU at home is 28-5 against Kansas State. So again, it's been a while since we've been able to play Kansas State, since 2010, right? But their record when they do play this team, if you're just looking at the history, 28-5 at home. So CU has the advantage in terms of what's happened between the history between these two teams, but again, a completely different team. Kansas State is on a roll right now. They're sitting at 4-1. Buffs are sitting at 4-1, both going to be on a bye this week. So that's going to be a good matchup. Again, it's prime time TV. And this is the first time in school history that the CU Buffs will appear in all 4 networks in the same season. So that's Fox, NBC, ABC, and CBS. It's the first time in school history. So you may not be a Buffs fan. You may not be a Boulder, Colorado fan at all. You may be a CSU fan, not a CU fan, but what Coach Prime has done for this football team and for the school itself is truly unremarkable. I mean, the Buffs can end, with 4 wins, and it will not change what Coach Prime has brought to this Boulder community and to the school itself. I mean, for it to be the first time in this school's entire history, I mean, even dating back to when the Buffs football team was really good, to appear in all 4 networks is impressive. And it's all credit to Coach Prime. And then, of course, you have the players who are dominating playing the games, who is making sure that people are watching these games. They've been exciting games to watch. I mean, you had Baylor last week at home in Boulder. That went into overtime. That was a great game. Lots of people tuned in for that. And then if you have the UCF game this weekend, where most people were just shocked to see that as a 2-touchdown underdog, Buffs win that game 48-21. And like I said, that was the statement game for them this year. I think it tops the TCU game. For me, TCU was a statement game for Coach Prime. This game against UCF was a statement game for the football team. Not just Coach Prime's here, we're coming. This was a game for me that the Buffs needed to win as a football team to prove that they belong in this conversation. I think now they have their chances of winning the Big 12 goes up considerably. Right now they're 2-0 in the Big 12 conference. I mean, they might end up getting 4 wins and still make it into that Big 12 championship game, but they're sitting right now in a great spot to be in, especially after people were writing the Buffs off. You had the first game of the season where they kind of just skate past North Dakota State. Like, they should have won that game by a lot more, is what people were expecting. And then, go to Nebraska in Lincoln and you outright get dominated by the Nebraska team. They lose that game. And since the second half of the Nebraska team is when I feel like a switch flipped. Once they headed into the second half of the Nebraska game, is when things kind of changed. You started seeing defense hold that team in the second half to their opponents. You started seeing offense starting to click more. O-line starting to improve drastically. The run game, which we thought was almost non-existent for the Buffs in those first two games, started to develop. O-line was holding in the CSU game after Nebraska, held CSU to 1 sack. So since the Nebraska game, something's flipped. I don't know what it was. I don't know if Coach Prime talked with them, but you have seen a completely different football team than you saw against that Nebraska team. And the win 48-21 kind of just proved what game that the Buffs are now able to play. It didn't prove that they're going to be, in that national championship, but it proved to me that if they put a full 60 minutes together, both sides of the ball, special teams, the Buffs are going to be hard to beat. They've now figured out their running game. They figured out O-line. I mean, there's still little things that need to be tweaked here and there. And I think Kansas State is really going to kind of show our weaknesses. And that's when the Buffs are going to have to figure out how to win against a team that's also dominating in the Big 12. But if they can do what they did against UCF, I see the Buffs getting very far in the remainder of the season. Defense, talking about during this game, forced 4 turnovers. That's what I said. Since that second half of the Nebraska game, you had the defense just turned on, right? They held Nebraska, I believe, to 7 points in the second half. They held UCF to 7 points in the second half. Defense forced 4 turnovers, 2 interceptions, and then 2 fumble recoveries, and then held UCF to a season low of 177 rushing yards. UCF was the #1 rushing offense, averaging 376 yards per game, and the CU defense held them to 177 yards. They had 5 sacks. They put pressure on the quarterback. They stopped the run for UCF, 7 points after halftime. And here's a stat that if you don't want to remember anything from what I'm saying, here's the stat I want you to remember. The CU Buffs are giving up an average of 5.2 points in the second half. So this defense, they're a second half team. Obviously, we want to see them show up in the first half as well. That's something, you want that quicker start that we're hoping to see in the future. But averaging 5.2 points given up, that's remarkable for this defense. And if they can now kind of transfer that more to the first half, this team is not only going to be unstoppable on offense with Shedeur, Travis Hunter, you have LaJohntay Wester, Jimmy Horn Jr. They have a great group of wide receivers. And then if you can get that defense to figure out how to get a quicker start, this team, it's going to be hard to beat them. Then you have, of course, Travis Hunter. It's the clip that everyone is talking about. Hit the Heisman pose after his interception in this game. And that really has been the talk of the Buffs. It's hard to not talk about it. It's hard not to talk about Travis Hunter deserves this Heisman. And Travis Hunter is a great player, but overall, the Buffs are showing me they are a great football team. You're always going to have Travis Hunter. You're always going to have Shedeur. But altogether, this Buffs team is showing me that they belong in that national conversation. Like I said, they're getting those primetime TV slots now. So people are watching, people are talking about them. And this team is definitely on the road. Again, I'm not going to be super helpful because we know how last season went after a 3-0 start, but they're definitely on the road for me to at least get into a bowl game. The spread going into this Kansas State game, obviously, Kansas State is still favored to win, even though it's in Boulder. Kansas State dominated Oklahoma State, so Kansas State will be the favorite in this game. But if it were me now, I'd put some money on the Buffs. If they can play like they did against UCF, I have the Buffs winning, and especially at home. It's a night game at home. You have the fans, the CU Buffs fan base. Again, we're not an SEC school, but it is something remarkable. And these CU Buffs fans are really just looking for to show that our Buffs team can prove something. They stay around when they were at the football games when we were 1-11, and they're still showing up. They obviously rushed the field against Baylor. I doubt they'd rush it again against Kansas State, but you never know. Our Buffs fans are there from beginning to end, regardless if we're winning or losing, and they truly believe in this Coach Prime era. So that's kind of it. You have Buffs on a bye this week. We're going to be doing some more predictions of people playing this week. But Buffs took care of business. That's pretty much it. UCF was a previously undefeated team, and Buffs gave them their first loss of the season. So we're going to see against Kansas State if Buffs can improve to 5-1, and we're going to see if they can put a full 60 minutes together again. Special teams, offense, defense, they all need to come together, especially against this great Kansas State team. So there you have it. That is my recap. In the comments below, let me know what you guys think, how you thought that game went. Obviously, I know a lot of Buffs fans are excited, but let me know how you see the future of the Buffs going, especially after watching what happened last year. And then I'm just going to leave you with a few questions. You can answer them in the comments below. Think about it, answer them in my next video. But these are my questions that I want you to kind of just think about. Comment down below. But this is what I got. Where can Shedeur Sanders improve? That's going to be my first question. He's remarkable. Travis Hunter is remarkable. But where can Shedeur improve? Is it the timing that he's throwing? Is it the not rushing as much, not rushing back? So that's my first question. Where can Shedeur improve? Can the defense keep stopping their opponents when it counts? You've had some huge saves by the defense. I mean, when you look at it, they stopped, let's see, CU currently is the 5th best red zone defense in the country. They're allowing points on they're 13 of 21 of drives that get inside the 20-yard line, including touchdowns on 9 of those 21 red zone trips. So they've forced 5 turnovers, 4 fumbles, 1 interception, and 1 turnover on downs in the red zone. So it just, to me, are those numbers sustainable? Defense is definitely stepping up. They need to get a faster start, but to you guys, can the defense continue to make these major stops when it truly counts, right? And then, of course, I'll ask the one question everyone's been asking. Should Travis Hunter win the Heisman? If you were to look at everything right now, all the contenders, should Travis Hunter win the Heisman? Is he the best college football player right now if we were to just stop the season? Is Travis Hunter your #1 pick to win the Heisman? And then last one, can the offensive line, and this has been a big question, and it's kind of, I feel like, is still what's holding the Buffs back a little bit. Can the offensive line continue to hold just enough for Shedeur to be able to throw the ball, just enough for us to develop that run game, which we did. The offensive line was great against UCF, but can they continue to be great? And that's been the question kind of this entire year. It's really looking at the O-line, because when you don't have an O-line, you kind of cancel out the greatness of Travis Hunter, the greatness of Shedeur. You cancel out all the wide receivers, and then that's when you start to see the team falling apart. So in the comments below, answer any one of those questions, and then join me next time on Peyton's Playbook. Thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, share this video, and I will see you next time on Peyton's Playbook.